Hello, everybody. Chuck Ramsey, the Lawdog, here with you for the Weekend Big Show. And it is a hot, hot week here in Oklahoma, and particularly Western Oklahoma. We got a little bit of rain earlier in the week. Jeremy Schroeder, the ruler of the airways, is going to join me in a little bit. But first, I wanted to take the time here on the Weekend Big Show and catch up with one of my favorite coaches to interview and cover his games, and that's Coach Craig Hixon out at Class A Division I now. Sayre Eagle football. Coach, how are you doing, and how's the summer going?
I'm doing great. This is my third summer to be here, and it's probably this is our best one. I mean, our attendance is really high. All our coaches are working together, and it just seems like it's a great opportunity for all these kids.
Yeah, and I mean, and I know kids today can be distracted by a lot, but really in some of these towns, I live in Thomas, you're in Sayre coaching football. Uh, there's not a lot else but to focus on football for some of these schools. So it should be pretty easy to let the kids know, hey, you shouldn't have a whole lot else going on. Get in the weight room.
Yeah, I've been at gosh, it seems like all levels, and the smaller schools you just have more uh, a connection with the kids. More. I think you're more. I don't know what word to use here, but it's easier to get them to come out. I mean,
Yeah.
they got jobs, but it's usually farm jobs, and usually their parents understand, or whoever they're working for, because we go from 7 to 8:30 in the morning. So even if they have jobs, they can get there by 9, and it just seems like it's easier to work with these smaller schools, and the way kids work, um, and what job opportunities they have, and we kind of work around that stuff. But so far in my career, I've really enjoyed the smaller schools.
Yeah. And so for anybody who's listening to the Weekend Big Show here on Law Dog Sports that has not heard my visits with you in the past, or you've been coaching how many years?
27, I believe. It
Wow.
gets a little harder to count as I get a little older, but
Well,
yeah,
I say wow because I can relate.
I believe it's 27. Have no idea about retirement. I don't plan on retiring, actually, so I just enjoy what I do.
For sure. And some of your stops along the way, I know, have been Woodward, and I believe, was it Shattuck or Arnett?
It was Shattuck.
Shattuck.
Yeah, I started my career in Texas, coaching at Plano. And then I just, when my kids got almost to middle school age, I just had a need to get back home. Um, I loved the football atmosphere down in Texas, but I was missing that hometown small feel of these, like I said, these small schools, and I wanted my kids to kind of grow up in that. So I started looking for jobs. I landed in Perry, Oklahoma, and my kids went to school there. Then ended up in Woodward after that, which was my hometown, and I was there for several years, and ended up being the head coach there for a while, which was kind of a surreal experience, being a former player there and then come back in as a head coach. It was just kind of a surreal, I used to be the kid knocking on the coach's door, and now that's my office. That
Yeah.
was a whole different experience. Then I went to Shattuck for a few years, and I almost decided to kind of take some time off and retire and just stick with teaching. But that coaching bug got in me, and when I got the opportunity to come to Sayre, I tell you what, it just refreshed me and got me back in the 11-man game, and I've really enjoyed it since.
For sure. And, I think it's interesting when I hear about coaches, and I've known guys that I played high school sports with over the years that get into coaching and sometimes go back, and it can be kind of a mixed bag at times. You go back and maybe some things are the same, maybe some things change, but Woodward it seems like a program that has changed a lot over the years. But I know they love having that K101 bowl up there every year.
Yeah, absolutely. It is a little. Sometimes, to me, going back to my hometown was the difficult part. Was uh, all those parents were my age now, and
Yeah.
and they knew me as the young high school kid versus somebody that's new or from a different place that you're meeting them as an adult.
Yeah.
But the part that was easy for me was I knew the culture, I knew how things worked in Woodward, and what was the expectations were. And so that part came easy. But it was a good experience.
Well, and then at Shattuck, you're talking about just such an 8-man football tradition, championship football out there, just left and right. So for as concentrated as maybe the fan base was and the parent base, I'm sure the scrutiny and the expectations were pretty high.
Yeah, it was. My son and I kind of laugh and talk about this, that you could go 11-2 and people would be disappointed, and any other program in the state would just be fired up for
Yeah.
it. But yeah, it did have a different feel, and it taught me something in my career, that there's two types of coaches. There's the type that want to take over a championship program, and that it's already been built, and then there's a type of coach that wants to build a program from the ground up. And what it really taught me was, I'm the type that wants to build the program. I want to start at the ground level and work my way up with all these kids.
Yeah. Well, and then you make the move to Sayre, and that was about the time that I took over as sports director at Right Media, and Sayre is one of the football programs on the Right Media network on Sayre Eagles TV and Zoo TV. And you were very conducive to me obtaining what I needed in order to cover Sayre football. I always appreciated that. And I'll be honest with you, I got to call one of y'all's games in the 2022 season, and you could kind of see the potential, but man, it was a rough go that first season at Sayre with one win on the season.
It was a rough go. I didn't know what to expect. I think that first season is really you just setting the tone for what you expect out of your program. Um, we only had, I think we finished with one senior that year. Um, we had a very large freshman class and a decent sized sophomore class, but every kid on that team, that was their first year experiencing varsity football. None of those kids, we had 0 returning starters. So that was really their first experience at it, and just kind of learning the ropes. And we spent a lot of Thursdays going through game time situations, like how do we act, how do we react to this, and just teaching them culture of what a good football program would be, like jogging off the field after an offense defensive change, or at halftime jogging into the locker room. I don't let them walk anywhere, and just setting that tone. And I think that really changed for the second year. Was I just knew if we could ever get over that hump of we played not to lose instead of playing to win, and that hump was we'd be in the game, but we'd just slowly let it go instead of just keeping our foot on their throats, and just finishing out and playing an entire game. And you saw it through our, we played Thomas a half a game really good. We played going back, we played Hooker a half a game really good. We never could put it all together. Even when we did, finally we won at Texhoma, and I still didn't feel like, I felt like that was 3 out of 4 quarters. It still wasn't a full game, but the hump to me was when we played the entire game, came from behind, which that was huge for our kids, because that was something, once they got behind, they just, it was in their, the culture of the old program, that once you got behind, they would just kind of let it slip away. And when we played Merritt, that to me was the hump. That was us finally clearing that we needed to get over. And when we beat them and came, and like I said, it was a come from behind. It was exciting. It was towards the end of the game, and that's when the confidence of these kids really stood out to me.
Yeah. And we're obviously we're speaking with Craig Hixon, head coach of the Sayre Eagles. For those who don't know, they competed last year in Class A District 1. It was a district that had 2 state finalists in it, Hooker Bulldogs and Fairview Yellow Jackets, who ended up winning their second consecutive state tournament. Very high quality teams. And then Thomas made a run. Moreland was tough. But the Merritt game, like you said, and I remember going over film for that for sports and pulling highlights, and it really was pretty amazing. And then also, when you think about it, Merritt's your Beckham County rival, and then also there's a family connection there for the Merritt offensive coordinator, who is your son.
Yeah, that's it's bittersweet on that. We joke with each other that we're 1-1 against each other. But it's a neat rivalry. It's fun for us. It just happened to be my 50th win on that one, so my son
Yeah.
got to be a part of it. So that was kind of neat. But
Yeah. So, and also back, I remember the first year I did football and for Class A, and I was doing Thomas, but Coach Richardson, the athletic director, he had two sons that played for you that first year. His brother, Coach Richardson at Merritt, and let's see, names escape me. I'm terrible with first names. But Barrett Richardson
yeah.
at Merritt, and then Brian Richardson now at Hennessy. But there were a lot of subtext storylines in between that Beckham County rivalry, and it was a lot of fun.
Well, we're only about 10 miles apart, so
Yeah.
there's a lot of connections there. I mean, these kids, it's a different age than when we grew up. That we might have known of somebody from a different town, but these kids follow each other on social media. They've known each other through social media more than anything, I think. But back when we grew up, we knew the kid's name. We might see him at a track meet, but that's about it.
Yeah. Well, and I tell you, Coach, the improvement was marked as you went 4-5 last season, 3-4 in District 1. Like I mentioned, 2 state semifinalists. Hooker was probably as good as any team that I've seen in a long time that did not win a state title. And then Fairview was just kind of otherworldly at times. But you guys hung in there. Like you said, you almost snuck out of Rossfield and Thomas with a win, and then you took care of your county rival, and then also just Burn Flat and that such. But you guys are really just improving. Now, I will say one thing, and the game that I called for you guys in 2022, that was Aiden Hendershot, who was a junior at the time, running back. He ran for 319 yards in the game I called for you guys. He did a lot of work for you all last year. What's in store to replace that kind of production in the upcoming season?
I'm really excited. I'm glad you asked this question. I feel like we're loaded in the backfield right now. We've got I've moved Zane Allen to running back. He played tight end for us last year. What really sparked that was I saw him in the he qualified for state in the 110 hurdles. Showed a lot of speed, and so I started thinking about it. We've got several tight ends. I mean, we've got Braden Mossberg, who's 6'3". We got Tate Bodden, who's about 6'2". And those are our bookends. And I started thinking, where can we play these guys? And I have backups actually this year. This is kind of new because that first year, that 1-9 season, we didn't have a lot of backups. And last year we had a large team, but our backups we were missing was on the offensive line.
Yeah.
But I've got a couple. I've got Cam Plummer, who's going to step in at quarterback right now. I feel like we have a really good, strong backfield. Zeke, he's at our fullback position. He's kind of solidified that. But we've also got some size up fronts on the offensive line. We're filling in with some really good guys that are coming up that are sophomores or juniors that were backups. But they were quality backups last year, and now they're stepping into a role. And we went to team camp over at Cashin, and our kids got off the bus with a lot of confidence.
Yeah. And, it's funny you say that, Coach, and I know, and in full disclosure to anybody listening, you're not going to employ a lot of passing. You're a veer team, single wing, whatever, however you phrase it. I know we've talked in the past, and you kind of held off, been able to implement some option here and there. But 7-on-7 is kind of funny. You said team camp, and I know some schools are doing 7-on-7, and it just always cracks me up when the predominantly run-based teams go do 7-on-7. But I will say this, like you mentioned, Zane Allen, I remember that kid. He's just a head knocker. I mean, he has no qualms going in there. And it's funny that you say, because when I've gone and covered some of the games and then off-season stuff, that body language and that physical stature when you get off the bus is probably a good chunk of the battle in itself.
Yeah, it's when I got the job here and I talked about my offense, and I told our superintendent, I said it'll change their their whole mentality. Like it just gives them confidence that they can go out there because, we're going to be a tough team to stop. And it's hard to stop somebody consistently for 3 or 4 or 5 yards at a time. And that just throughout the game, it just builds up into 6, 7, 8 yards later on in the third and fourth quarter. And those kids have confidence because they realize that moving the chains is important, that not every play can be designed to be a touchdown, but we can put together a 12-play drive and go get a touchdown, and burn up some clock, keep our defense fresh. Yeah. And it has changed our kids, and our kids, they're excited. We're going to another team camp coming up in July, up in Wichita, Kansas, and our kids are really excited about that one also.
Cool. Well, and kind of the white elephant in the room is the redistricting and reclassification of Class A this year, in which the ADM has Sayre up in the Division I of Class A. Looking at the district, you're going to have Cashin, Crescent, Fairview, Hinton, Hooker, Merritt, you guys, and Watonga. I know Watonga's looking to make market improvement. Hooker's Hooker. Hinton has always got a physical team, and Cashin has been a big time, contender in Class A. So talk about the task going forward as far as the Sayre Eagles in the new classification Division I of Class A.
Oh, well, it seems like we went from a tough district to another tough district. Yeah. Every one of those teams, you look at Crescent, they've always kind of been a tough history of being a good quality football team. Cashin in the last several years has always had a quality team, making runs or they had I think they won a state championship just a few years ago in Class A. Yeah. Watonga's been down, but they got a new coach that's getting some things excited over there, and they got a lot of new. They passed a bond with a lot of brand new facilities, so you're getting more kids out with that. And yeah, of course, Hinton's always been kind of that tough. I kind of look at Hinton kind of like us. That game will be over by about 8:15 because neither one of us
rolling clock.
Yeah, neither one of us are going to throw the ball, so it'll be a tough game. But nothing new. I mean, we still got to fight. We finished 5th in our district last year. My goal this year, and our kids, we talk about it every day, is make the playoffs, and I think that's a big accomplishment when you look at these teams in this district.
Yeah. Well, and it's going to be interesting. As I mentioned, Crescent was tough last year at Fairview, defending two-time champion, Hooker as well. But it's nothing. Some of those teams are nothing you haven't seen already. And so talk about what the mental state of your team is like you said, a lot of those young players. I guess when I called you all's game in 2022, Zane Allen, would he have been a freshman that year?
He'd have been a sophomore.
Sophomore, yeah. And then some of those players, and talk about the mentality these kids have going into the season after 2 full years in your system.
They have a lot of confidence. We spent a lot of time with powerlifting and in the weight room, and they've bought into it because they've seen the results. I think that was, of course, when they go from several coaches in a row that run spread offenses, and that's what they see sometimes on Saturdays, and then come into us, what we do, it's a little different to them, and not all of them buy into it right off the bat. But I think finally seeing some success with it, and especially our young kid, our junior high, only lost 1 game last year, and so that was important for them to see some success running it, and I think that'll carry over as they get into high school, is they realize, hey, we can go do this stuff, and that it really did boost our confidence. It gave us kind of a little chip on our shoulder, where we we line up and we can almost point and tell you, hey, it's going to come right here, and there's nothing you can do about it, and that's the mentality we wanted from our kids. So it's been good for us.
Yeah, that's outstanding. And anybody that wants to go back and see some of the highlights of Sayre Eagle football from last season, you can go to right.media and Sayre Eagles TV and click on demand on any of the games last season. There were some really good ones in particular, and I don't mean to pick out one that you guys lost, but that Thomas game really was an exciting game because it really was just a topsy-turvy game from
It was.
between two halves. And then also, like I said, that Merritt game, I remember pulling highlights from that, and it was a very exciting game in that one. And then also you get to listen to Max Patton and Dakota Gloria on the call, so it's always a blast there. And I got to say, we do have to visit with Max every once in a while because he's not a particular fan of the zebra stripes out there. Anything that goes against Sayre, but that's the great thing about having a a program that has their own broadcast and homegrown guys, home team guys that do the call. So rest of the summer, you did mention you guys have another camp going on, and then I guess it's just Eagle strength from that point on till you start fall practice.
Yeah, well, we've got some 7-on-7s. Our junior has been going down to Altus and doing 7-on-7, and like you mentioned that run teams don't always go do that stuff, but I've always looked at 7-on-7 as practice for us. Like,
Yeah.
If you can throw the ball around doing our stuff, running our play action and against a team that it doesn't have a defensive line in front of you, and those kids know it's going to be a pass instead of always running, where in a game we get to catch them by surprise with a pass play.
Yeah.
But our junior high did really good down there at Altus last week. We go back again next week, and then we're taking our varsity over to Clinton and doing that. And I never, like I said, I even tell the kids when we get off the bus, they don't hand out state championship trophies for 7-on-7. This is for practice. This is for us to get better, to kind of hone our skills for when we need that big play, that big pass play, to kind of open things up a little bit and get that defense to kind of loosen up and stretch out a little more.
Yeah.
We go up to Kansas. Kids are excited about that one. It's at Wichita North High School. How we got into that is I have a former player who used to run this offense. He coaches up there, and he invited us. His head coach wanted to kind of see what we do, and so we got invited to their team camp, and now we actually spend a little time FaceTiming, talking plays and strategy and stuff like that. But they invited us again this year. Kids are excited about it. We'll go up, and what we'll do is we'll do a 7-on-7 tournament the night before. We'll get up the next morning and pad up and go scrimmage.
Yeah. Well, and that's the great thing about summertime is you get the kids involved and you start building that cohesion that teams need. And it's funny you mentioned Clinton, the 7-on-7. I'll probably run out there for a little bit, even though I'm not required to cover it anymore. But I always enjoy catching up with Coach Higbee after a 7-on-7 and just saying, "Coach, how'd it go today?"
Yeah.
So you guys that preach run, that's always a fun interview after you've had to pass the ball all day. But well, I tell you, Coach, and we're wishing the most luck for you this upcoming season and the development that those kids have had in your 2 seasons at Sayre, I think has been really tremendous, and it's a lot of fun to watch your teams play, particularly on Zoo TV, on Right.Media. But so really, in the big picture of things, your family, like I said, you've got a son that's just 15 minutes down the road. You're probably settled in there now after 2 years. So Sayre has to be offering some things that kind of meet what you need at this stage of your career and life.
Yeah, my wife and I talk about that all the time. Like, we kind of found our home, I guess is the best way to put it, because not everybody likes the offense we run. Kind of like the military schools, it's just different than what everybody does, and we really like the kids here. We like the community. It's a really close knit community. We were out of town one time, and we called another parent to go swing by and get something for our daughter who was at home, 15-year-old. But it's just that type of community, and those. I feel like every day getting up, it's a awesome job. Like, I don't ever regret going to work. Like, I love working with the kids we have and trying to make them better through our weight program and our summer strength program, stuff like that. But yeah, we really enjoy it here.
That's great. And and I think that's the lure and the benefit of, the things that come along, particularly in Western Oklahoma. I think, I've noticed, and you can pick town from town to town, and a lot of the stories are the same. I'm sure your son has experienced a lot of the same things and things he enjoys at Merritt. Any chance that he's going to be throwing his hat in the ring for a head coaching job somewhere before?
Yeah, he's really wanting to. He asked me all the time. I was 32 before I got my first head coaching job, and he's 28 right now. But he's been a part of football his whole life. He's been in my system. He kind of knows what being a coach is about and the hours that you put in and stuff like that. So I told him I think he's ready. In fact, I named off a couple schools nearby I think he ought to try for, but he's actually switching sides this year. He's going to be the defensive coordinator over there.
Oh, okay. So that's Cale Hixon, right?
Yes.
Yeah, Cale Hixon. So now defensive coordinator for the Merritt Oilers. So, well, that's outstanding. And Coach, I just want to make sure you know how much I've appreciated your time today, and then also throughout your time at Sayre. Anytime I've needed an interview or some sort of audio for a story, you've always been more than obliging, and I sure appreciate that. And just really wish you the best of luck this season. And we'll be keeping an eye on the Sayre Eagles as well, and maybe catch up with you sometime on your bye week or something like that.
All right. Well, absolutely. Thank you.
All right. He's Craig Hixon. He's the head coach for the Sayre Eagles football squad, a team that is on the rise and improving each and every year. And they're going to start their 2024 season in the Class A Division I division, where they've divided Class A into two divisions. And them and Merritt are the two Western Oklahoma squads here in the area, as well as Watonga, which is when you drive from Sayre to Watonga, you realize that's a pretty good clip. But anyways, we appreciate Coach Hixon visiting with us. We'll take a quick break, and when we come back, Jeremy Schroeder will join me, and we will recap the week in sports and also preview your big weekend coming up here on the Big Weekend Show, powered by Lawdog Sports. I'm Chuck Ramsey, the Lawdog.